calmly, almost casually addressed the one thing fans thought she would never touch again, her relationship with Birdman. Not the music, not the lupus battles, not the new movies, but the thing the world has whispered about for nearly a decade, the love story she tried to keep private, the marriage rumor she never confirmed, and the one twist nobody saw coming. It began with a question people were too scared to ask out loud: "Are you married or not?" Toni didn't flinch. She didn't hide behind PR answers or vague smiles. She said she heard the rumors too, the divorce filings, the sudden split, the reconciliation, and of course, the infamous $160 million story. The rumor that Birdman dropped off $160 million like it was a box of chocolates. And for a moment, Toni looked like she was trying not to laugh at how ridiculous that number was. But then, her smile softened. Because the truth wasn't funny at all. It was complicated. And for the first time, she was ready to talk. People forget that Toni Braxton and Birdman weren't some random celebrity pairing thrown together for shock value. They were friends long before they were lovers. 25 years of quiet loyalty, gentle companionship, and a bond built behind the cameras. Before the Grammys, before the Las Vegas shows, before the hospital stays and industry fights, they were just two people who understood each other. There are some stories that don't just trend, they return from the dead. Stories the internet swears they solved years ago, only to discover they never knew anything at all. That's exactly what happened the moment Toni Braxton sat down for her interview and gently, without needing the world to understand them. The public only saw them holding hands years later, but the foundation was laid long before that moment. When Toni finally spoke about Birdman, it wasn't the story people expected. She didn't talk about flashy gifts or the rich rapper fantasy the internet loves to imagine. She talked about comfort. About safety. About someone who showed up when the cameras were off. She didn't describe passion, she described peace. She said she was the happiest she had been in years, not because of fame, not because of success, but because she was comfortable in her skin and comfortable in her relationship. And that was the twist nobody expected, especially after everything that was reported. Because the rumors were wild. The blog said Birdman gave her a massive check to save her from debt. They said they married in secret. They said they divorced just 48 hours later. They said Birdman moved out. They said Toni blocked him. They said she was devastated. They said he was embarrassed. Every day a new story. Every week a new twist. Every month a new headline claiming to know the truth. But they didn't know anything. The truth was that Toni and Birdman tried to keep their private life private. She said it herself, the moment the world finds out, the world starts inventing the rest. And the worst part? They weren't wrong. The moment someone whispered Birdman wrote her a check, suddenly people acted like they had access to her bank account. The moment someone tweeted, "They're done," blogs acted like they were invited to the breakup. The moment someone claimed they secretly remarried, fans went hunting for wedding rings and paparazzi photos. It never stopped. And yet, Toni stayed quiet. Birdman stayed quieter. They let the storm pass because storms always pass. But when she finally opened up, it wasn't to gossip. It was to reclaim her story. She said they had ups and downs. She said they didn't want the world involved. She said that love, real love, is messy. But she also said she was not heartbroken. She was not abandoned. She was not bought out. She was not desperate. She was simply a woman choosing stability over spectacle. That's why people were shocked when Toni admitted she didn't want anyone to know when things were good between them. Because when the world knows, the world interferes. And they had already lived through interference. They had already watched the blogs turn their love into a circus. They had already watched fans debate their relationship like it was a TV show. Toni didn't want that again. She didn't want every argument analyzed. She didn't want every smile misinterpreted. She didn't want her romance consumed by strangers. She wanted the freedom to love quietly. But even silence becomes a headline when you're Toni Braxton. The most dramatic twist came when she admitted she and Birdman almost let go. They almost walked away. They almost lost something that had 25 years of history behind it. People were quick to say the relationship was falling apart. People were quick to say Birdman was too cold. People were quick to say Toni deserved better. People were quick to say she had finally given up. But none of those people knew the truth. They only knew the rumors. The truth was that Birdman and Toni didn't break because of betrayal or drama. They broke because of pressure. The pressure of being watched. The pressure of being analyzed. The pressure of people turning their relationship into clickbait. So they pulled back. They protected themselves. They made decisions quietly. They healed quietly. And when they found their way back to each other, they did it quietly too. That's why it shocked the world when Toni confirmed their bond was still alive, because nobody saw it coming. But the most shocking moment came when she talked about happiness. Real happiness. The kind you don't brag about online because it belongs to you, not your followers. She said she was peaceful. She said she was relaxed. She said she was grounded. She said she was comfortable in her skin as a woman. Not a celebrity. Not a singer. A woman. And then she hinted, just slightly, gently, that her relationship had a lot to do with that peace. And that's when people realized the truth. This wasn't just a love story. It was a survival story. A story of a woman who lost money, lost health, lost marriages, lost trust, but didn't lose hope. A woman who rebuilt her heart with someone she trusted long before anyone else knew his name. A woman who didn't need the world to approve her love for it to be real. And that's when the drama began again. Because if Toni Braxton was this happy, if Toni Braxton was this peaceful, if Toni Braxton was this comfortable, then Birdman must still be in the picture. The same Birdman people claimed she kicked out. The same Birdman people swore she divorced. The same Birdman people insisted she was done with. The internet hates being wrong, and they were wrong about everything. And that's exactly why this story isn't over. The real twist in Toni Braxton's story didn't come from the rumors. It came from what she didn't say. Because when Toni talks, she talks carefully, like a woman who has learned the hard way that one sentence can become a headline she never intended to make. And throughout the interview, one thing became clear: Toni wasn't just denying rumors. She was protecting something fragile, something delicate, something she didn't want the world to break again: her relationship with Birdman. People always imagined their romance as some cliché R&B meets hip-hop fantasy. The glamorous singer meets the hardened mogul. The good girl with the bad boy. The elegant queen with the tattooed legend. But the truth Toni revealed was far more complicated and far more intimate than any Hollywood script. Birdman wasn't just a partner, he was the one constant in her life. Through bankruptcy. Through lupus scares. Through heartbreak. Through reinvention. He wasn't watching from the sidelines, he was standing right beside her before anyone knew his name. That's why the world was stunned when Toni revealed just how deep their bond went. She talked about trust, about longevity, about choosing someone who knew her before she became a global name. And when Toni said she was the happiest she's been in years, fans immediately understood that no rumor, not the money, not the breakup, not the scandal, could explain the connection they had. Because real happiness doesn't come from a $160 million check. Real happiness comes from finding someone who stayed when everyone else left. But that didn't stop the internet from twisting the story. Social media convinced itself that Birdman had saved her financially, that he swooped in with millions to pay off her debts and rescue her reputation. People said Toni was with him for stability. But Toni was quick to shut that down. She made it clear she didn't need saving. She made it clear she didn't need a hero. She made it clear that love came from friendship, not finances. The funniest part was how confidently she shut down the Birdman dropped off $160 million rumor. She didn't even seem offended, she seemed amused, like someone who had heard too many ridiculous stories to take any of them seriously. Because the truth wasn't flashy. It wasn't sensational. It wasn't headline-friendly. The truth was quiet. And the internet hates quiet truth. What fans didn't see at first was how much pressure Toni felt keeping her love life public. The Braxton family already lived under scrutiny. Every argument became drama. Every disagreement became a storyline. So when Toni and Birdman tried to live their marriage, or maybe marriage, privately, the world treated secrecy like scandal. They couldn't breathe without someone assuming they were hiding something terrible. And that's when their relationship almost fell apart. Toni admitted that they didn't want people to know when they reconciled because they didn't want the world rewriting their story again. The last time people found out, the internet exploded with narratives that didn't belong to them. People claimed Toni was chasing money. People said Birdman was forcing her into a lifestyle she didn't belong in. People said Toni was too soft for him. People said Birdman was too rough for her. Nobody understood them. Nobody tried to understand them. They were judged before they even had a chance. So when things became rocky, Toni and Birdman made the decision the world never expected. They stepped back to protect their love instead of destroying it in public. That's what made their reunion even more shocking. Because it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't noisy. It wasn't an Instagram announcement. It was quiet reconciliation built on years of trust. And when Toni said she was comfortable in her skin, fans knew exactly what she was talking about. Because a woman who is at peace doesn't fight rumors. A woman at peace doesn't explain herself to strangers. A woman at peace holds on to the love that makes her whole, whether the world approves or not. Toni looked like a woman who wasn't hiding anything. She was protecting something. That's why the world is so obsessed with this story now. It's not the scandal. It's not the money rumor. It's not the marriage confusion. It's the mystery. The quiet intimacy. The history nobody can break. Because no matter what the world says, no matter how many headlines twist their story, Toni Braxton made one thing clear: she is choosing love on her own terms. And the part she didn't say out loud, that might be the loudest truth of all.